Hello, students. Welcome back. Today, we are going to begin with chapter 6 of the book Beehive, that is My Childhood. So, as you can make out with the title, the title is in the first person, My Childhood. That means it is written by the author himself, and the author is talking about his own childhood. And the author of this chapter is no other than our former Prime Minister and a great scientist, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. And this has been taken from his biography called Wings of Fire. And here he is talking about his upbringing, his parents, his siblings, and his friends also, and teachers also, who all these people have influenced his childhood. So I'm sure you're going to enjoy this chapter and learn few things about Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. Now let's begin the chapter. I was born into a middle class Tamil family in the island town of Rameshwaram in the erstwhile Madras state. My father, Zainul Abidin, had neither much formal education nor much wealth. Despite these disadvantages, he possessed great innate wisdom and a true generosity of spirit. Now, students, in the first line, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam is talking about his family, that he was born in a middle class Tamil family. The place is Rameshwaram. I'm sure you have heard about it. And it's an island town in the state of Tamil Nadu in the Bay of Bengal. And today we know this state as Tamil Nadu, but when he was born, this was known as the Madras state. And then he talks about his father. His name was Zainul Abidin, though it is written with J, but the correct pronunciation is Zainul Abidin. And APJ Abdul Kalam talks about his father as not a very rich person, but he was very much educated, and he had few other qualities, which the qualities were that he was wise and generous. Generous means when you are ready to help the needy person with all your wealth and all. He had an ideal helpmate in my mother, Ashia Amma. Now, the name of his mother was Ashia Amma, and Dr. Kalam is talking about his mother as a person who used to help his father, and she was a great support to the family. I do not recall the exact number of people she fed every day, but I'm quite certain that far more outsiders ate with us than all the members of our own family put together. So Dr. Kalam's mother was also generous and a very kind-hearted lady. And every day she used to feed a lot of people, the food she used to serve to a lot of needy and hungry people. And like both the mother and father were quite generous and helpful and kind. I was one of many children, a short boy with rather undistinguished looks, born to tall and handsome parents. So now coming back to this line, Dr. Kalam is talking about himself. He's saying that he had many siblings, and he describes himself as a short-heighted person with common looks. And he was not that, exceptional looks, that he was highly handsome or something. On the contrary, he's saying that his parents were very tall and very good looking. And Dr. Kalam is saying that he did not inherit their physical qualities. We lived in our ancestral house, which was built in the middle of the 19th century. It was a fairly large pakka house made of limestone and brick on the Mosque Street in Rameshwaram. Now he is talking about his abode, his house, and it was like he lived in his ancestral house. Ancestral house means like his grandparents, and then maybe his parents used to stay in the same house, and it was a very pakka house. In the 19th century, having a pakka house was a great thing. And the house was located on the Mosque Street in Rameshwaram. My austere father used to avoid all inessential comforts and luxuries. However, all necessities were provided for in terms of food, medicine, or clothes. In fact, I would say mine was a very secure childhood, both materially and emotionally. So, austere here means, simple person, a simple person with the little bit of a strictness, you can say. And so Dr. Kalam is talking about his father, that he was simple, but at the same time he was strict, and he led his life in a very simple way and always taught his children not to waste money on unnecessary things. And Dr. Kalam also says that his father used to avoid any kind of inessential comfort and luxuries. Inessential means things which are not required, like we can manage without them also. So those things are called inessential. And Dr. Kalam's father provided his children with all the necessary things like, food, clothes, and medicines. And then Dr. Kalam is showing his gratitude, his thankfulness to his parents for whatever they did for him. That not only they provided with food, clothes, medicines, and they provided with love and affection also. So it was a nice childhood of Dr. Kalam. Then the Second World War broke out in 1939 when I was 8 years old. So you can make out when did Dr. Kalam was born. In 1939 he was 8 years old, so you can see that he was born in the year 1931, and when he was 8 years old it was Second World War broke out. So Dr. Kalam was born in the year 1931. For reasons I have never been able to understand, a sudden demand for tamarind seeds erupted in the market. I used to collect the seeds and sell them to a provision shop on Mosque Street. A day's collection would fetch me the princely sum of 1 anna. Now, tamarind is a kind of that sour fruit, that is added in sambar and other things like chutney and all. So I'm sure you must have heard of. In Hindi we call it imli. So what happened that now Dr. Kalam is talking about one incident of his childhood when the World War broke. So what happened at that time? The demand for tamarind seeds increased in the market, and Dr. Kalam, as an 8-year-old, used to collect and sell the tamarind seeds to a provision shop located on Mosque Street. And by selling that, first he used to collect the tamarind seeds. I'm sure like a lot of trees were there, so he used to spend his time in collecting that, and he would sell it to a shopkeeper, and he would earn a mere sum of 1 anna, which equals 6 paisa. So when he addresses it as a princely sum means good amount of money, something very great and valuable. He is being ironic, as the amount was very meager, but at that time 1 anna meant a lot of money to him because he was a child, and for a child, a little amount of money is quite a lot. My brother in law Jalaluddin would tell me stories about the war, which I would later attempt to trace in the headlines in Dinamani. Now, Dinamani was a Tamil daily newspaper. It was a paper in the language of Tamil. And now he is talking about his brother in law, whose name was Jalaluddin, and he is saying that since he was adult, he was elder to him, he used to talk about all the stories about the war, and then he used to read the newspaper. Our area, being isolated, was completely unaffected by the war. But soon India was forced to join the Allied forces and something like a state of emergency was declared. Now, Allied means, when few parties or few group of people combine together for something. It can be a war, it can be a political party or anything like. So he's talking about Rameshwaram, that was a big small island town far away from the land. So it was not affected by World War in the beginning, but after some time what happened that India had to join the war and combined with the Allied forces. Allied forces at that time were the armies of UK, USA and Russia. Then a state of emergency was declared in the country. Now, what happens in the during emergency, what happens? The president's rule is implemented, and it's like a curfew in the entire country, and you need to be very careful, and police is around, and you can't just stand in groups, and things are like that. Like, it's quite a strict rule at that time. So a lot of privileges which were given to the people were withdrawn. So there was sort of crisis at that time. The first casualty came in the form of the suspension of the train halt at Rameshwaram station. The newspapers now had to be bundled and thrown out from the moving train on the Rameshwaram road between Rameshwaram and Dhanuskodi. Okay, so what happened? The first impact of World War on the people of Rameshwaram was the cancellation of the train stoppage at the Rameshwaram station. So this was the first impact that he witnessed. And earlier, the train which came from India used to stop at Rameshwaram station and then went to the other places. But now the halt was cancelled at the Rameshwaram. So what happened that the newspaper bundles which used to come for Rameshwaram were used to be thrown out of the moving train, because the train will not stop. So somehow paper has to reach to the people of Rameshwaram. So the people who were carrying the newspaper in the train used to throw out at the station, and the other people who were responsible to collect used to take it. So now that forced my cousin Shamsuddin, who distributed newspapers in Rameshwaram, to look for a helping hand to catch the bundles, and as if naturally I filled the slot. Shamsuddin helped me earn my first wages. So again, he was into earning something, and he had his one of his cousins was the person responsible for the newspaper in Rameshwaram. So he wanted a helping hand, and he just chose Dr. Kalam for it, and Shamsuddin paid him a salary, which was Dr. Kalam's, you can say, first earning. Half a century later, I can still feel the surge of pride in earning my own money for the first time. Now, children, this is very important line, and I'm sure you will feel it when you will start earning. There is something very nice, something very satisfactory. When you earn your first living, you feel very proud of yourself. So with this, I would like to tell you that I'm sure, like, when you will first earn your salary, you're going to enjoy, you will value that, you are not going to waste it. So you should value your parents' money also, and you should feel the importance of money, that how important it is. So this incident happened somewhere about 50 years ago. So that is why he's saying half a century later. Even now, when he wrote the book, at that time he's talking about that he could feel that sense of satisfaction and proud of himself. Dr. Kalam is saying that whenever someone earns his own money with his hard work, he feels it the same way as he did. So one should value the money, and one should value the hard work that your elders and your parents do. Every child is born with some inherited characteristics into a specific socio-economic and emotional environment, and trained in certain ways by figures of authority. I inherited honesty and self-discipline from my father. From my mother, I inherited faith in goodness and deep kindness, and so did my 3 brothers and sisters. So for a child, the figures of authority, here the figures of authority means that a person who had authority over another person, and who has the power to give orders and all. So he's saying that figures of authority is his parents, and the next figure of authority can be his teacher, a person who has authority over the child. So Dr. Kalam is saying that whenever a child is born, he has some quality which he acquires from the elders in his family, sometimes biological, and these depend upon the social status of the family and the environment. So what he learned from his father, or you can say what he inherited from his father, is honesty and self-discipline. And from his mother, he inherited faith in goodness and deep kindness. And his siblings also, his brothers and sisters also inherited these qualities from their parents. This bit of para is important. You need to remember what qualities he inherited from his father and from his mother. Now, after the family, he's talking about his friends. I had three close friends in my childhood: Ramananda Shastri, Aravindan, and Shiva Prakashan. All these boys were from Orthodox Hindu Brahmin families. Now, APJ, when he was young, he had three best friends during his childhood: Ramananda Shastri, Arvindam, and Shiva Prakash, and they all belonged to strict Hindu Brahmin families, and they were the ardent followers of their religion. Whereas, APJ Abdul Kalam was a Muslim. So, as children, none of us ever felt any difference amongst ourselves because of our religious differences and upbringing. In fact, Ramananda Shastri was a son of Pakshi Lakshmana Shastri, the high priest of the Rameshwaram temple. Later, he took over the priesthood of the Rameshwaram temple from his father. Aravindan went into the business of arranging transport for visiting pilgrims, and Shiva Prakashan became a catering contractor for the Southern Railways. Now, in this para, students, Dr. Kalam has talked about his friends and what they became when they grew up. This also you need to remember, and and you need to remember the names as well as their profession when they grew up. So, during the annual Shri Sita Rama Kalyanam ceremony, our family used to arrange boats with a special platform for carrying idols of the Lord from the temple to the marriage site, situated in the middle of the pond called Rama Tirtha, which was near our house. So, Rama Kalyanam ceremony is also known as Kalyanotsava. So, it means marriage festival in South India. Marriage is known as Kalyanam, in southern language. So, Lord Ram and Sita's marriage is called Sita Rama Kalyanam ceremony. Got it? Now, it is a ceremony of the depiction of the marriage between Sita and Rama. So, whenever this ceremony used to take place, Dr. Kalam's family took part in it. Though being a Muslim, but even then they took part and they used to arrange the boards for it. And there was no difference, at that time between Hindus and Muslims, as they participated in the Hindu festivals wholeheartedly. These people were very close. Events from the Ramayana and from the life of the Prophet were the bedtime stories my mother and grandmother would tell the children in our family. So Dr. Kalam says that when he was young, he listened to the stories from the Ramayana and the life of Prophet Muhammad from their mother and grandmother as bedtime stories. These kind of stories should be told to the children so that they could learn something, good from the great people like Shri Ram, Shri Krishna, Prophet Muhammad, Jesus Christ, because they all have been telling us, teaching us something nice for our lives. So they listened to stories of both Hindu gods and Muslim gods, and there was no differentiation on grounds of religion, at least not in his family. One day when I was in the 5th standard at the Rameshwaram Elementary School, a new teacher came to our class. I used to wear a cap which marked me as a Muslim, and I always sat in the front row next to Ramananda Shastri, who wore the sacred thread. So one day, what happened that since he was a Muslim, so he used to wear a cap on his head, that cap that Muslims wear when they read namaz. So he was being identified as a Muslim, and his friend Ramananda Shastri was the son of the priest, as being told earlier, and he used to wear the sacred thread worn by Brahmins. So when these children were in class 5, a new teacher came, and Dr. Kalam recalls an incident which happened. So what the new teacher did, the new teacher could not stomach a Hindu priest's son sitting with a Muslim boy. In accordance with our social ranking, so in accordance, all right. So what happened? The new teacher could not, stomach that. So Dr. Kalam was asked to go and sit on the back bench, and Dr. Kalam felt very sad, and so did Ramananda Shastri, because they were close friends. He looked utterly downcast as I shifted to my seat in the last row. The image of him weeping when I shifted to the last row left a lasting impression on him. So this new teacher was not that secular, and what he did, that he made Dr. Kalam sit at the back row, and his friend was, sitting in the first row, and Ramananda Shastri cried for this, and Dr. Kalam was greatly impressed by it. After school, then this incident happened, and then what they did after school, we went home and told our respective parents about the incident. Lakshmana Shastri summoned the teacher, and in our presence told the teacher that he should not spread the poison of social inequality and communal intolerance in the minds of innocent children. He bluntly asked the teacher to either apologize or quit the school and the island. Not only did the teacher regret his behavior, but the strong sense of conviction Lakshmana Shastri conveyed ultimately reformed this young teacher. So the children went home and told everything to their parents, and then the priest Lakshmana Shastri called the teacher. Summoned the teacher means called the teacher, and he said that this is not the way you should bring out communal intolerance in the minds of young and innocent children, because children are considered as very pious and innocent, and the teacher was trying to do that. So he straightway asked the teacher to either apologize to the students or everyone or leave the school. So the teacher regretted his behavior. Regret means like he was feeling bad, and he was not only felt bad, he also realized that what he did was wrong. Reformed means like when something is done to improve. You must have heard about the reformers. So that was also reformed. On the whole, okay, on the whole, the small society of Rameshwaram was very rigid in terms of the segregation of different social groups. However, my science teacher, Shiva Subramania Iyer, though an orthodox Brahmin with a very conservative wife, was something of a rebel. He did his best to break social barriers so that people from varying backgrounds could mingle easily. He used to spend hours with me and would say, Kalam, I want you to develop so that you are on par with the highly educated people of the big cities. So, Dr. Kalam is again talking about one more great personality, that is his teacher, science teacher. His name was Shiva Subramania Iyer. He was a religious person, but at the same time, he was a kind of rebellious person and very, secular. But his wife was quite, that kind of lady who used to, differ on the grounds of caste and all. So one day what happened? One day he invited me to his home for a meal. His wife was horrified at the idea of a Muslim boy being invited to dine in her ritually pure kitchen. She refused to serve me in her kitchen. Shiva Subramania Iyer was not perturbed, nor did he get angry with his wife, but instead served me with his own hands and sat down beside me to eat his meal. His wife watched us from behind the kitchen door. I wondered whether she had observed any difference in the way I ate rice, drank water, or cleaned the floor after the meal. So here the great scientist Dr. Kalam is talking about an incident which happened again when he was quite young, and his teacher, science teacher, called him in his home for food, for a meal, and the wife was very strict, keeping the religion in mind, if we say. So she used to think that she is superior and others are inferior. So what happened? She just refused to serve him food in her kitchen. So his teacher, Shiva Subramania Iyer, didn't get angry on his wife. Instead, what he did, he served the food himself and ate with Dr. Kalam. And Dr. Kalam is saying that he doesn't think that his wife felt any difference in the way she was having his food or the way he was drinking water in the meal. This way, he wants to highlight that religion does not matter and it does not alter the way in which a person eats food. Whether you belong to any religion, any caste, the main things in our life remains the same. We all eat the same way, we all breathe the same air, we all take, the sunshine from the same sun. Like, majority of the things are same except for the name that we, call our gods. That's, I guess, the only thing, and few rituals. Rest of the things are same. One day, okay, when I was leaving his house, okay, uh, when I was leaving his house, Shiva Subramania Iyer invited me to join him for dinner again the next weekend. Observing my hesitation, he told me not to get upset, saying, once you decide to change the system, such problems have to be confronted. When I visited house the next time, Shiva Subramania Iyer's wife took me inside her kitchen and served me with food with her own hands. So, these things happen when we are sticking to the right thing. People around us also change. And this is truth. So, next time when he visited his teacher, science teacher's home, his wife, herself, made him sit in the kitchen and serve the food with her own hands. So this change had happened because someone had initiated the change, and it was her own husband. So these are called reformers. These people are called reformers. You must have heard about few other reformers in your social studies. So this is how things gets better, society gets better. So someone has to take the initiative, and this thing changed. Then the Second World War was over and India's freedom was imminent. Indians will build their own India, declared Gandhiji. The whole country was filled with an unprecedented optimism. I asked my father for permission to leave Rameshwaram and study at the district headquarters in Ramanathapuram. So when the Second World War got over in the year 1945, when did it started? In 1939. India was about to get freedom after just 2 years, which happened in the year 1947. So at that time, Gandhiji was known as the father of the nation, and he was, as you all know, was a crucial part of India's freedom struggle. And he said that Indians would build their own India. So the entire country was filled with hope and happiness, and everyone was experiencing such a feeling which they had never felt before. And people were looking forward for the freedom. So this is, we are talking about of the year 1945. And then I asked my father for permission to leave Rameshwaram and study at the district headquarters in Ramanathapuram. He told me as if thinking aloud, Abul, I know you have to go away to grow. Does the seagull not fly across the sun alone and without a nest? So Dr. Kalam, when asked his father to allow him to go to a different city for further studies, so his father said that, in his reply, his father told him that he knew that APJ needed to go away so that he could move ahead in life. And he gave the example of a seagull which flies away in the sky all alone and does not have a nest. This is something that you'll come to know, that seagulls does not have any nest. They just move. It means it does not have a home of its own. It keeps on flying from one place to another. So he quoted Khalil Gibran to my hesitant mother. Your children are not your children. They are the sons and daughters of life's longing for itself. They come through you, but not from you. You may give them your love, but not your thoughts, for they have their own thoughts. So, obviously, mothers are the one who gets affected more. So, when she came to know, she was a little bit disturbed. She got upset. Then Dr. Kalam's father calmed her down and told her a few lines from a famous poem titled Your Children, written by Khalil Gibran. He said that your children are not your children, they are the children of life. Don't think that you can rule your children. They are a result of life's desires for itself. They have their own thoughts, and he asked her to give them freedom to fulfill their thoughts. So, children, This, as you know, has been taken from the book Wings of Fire. It's a very good book. I'd advise all of you to read it. And you all know about this great personality, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. And this is how, when he moved to a different town, he studied hard, he really worked hard, and he became a great scientist.